This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd Neiman.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. You have Ferd Neiman here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got another great guest for you. You guys have probably seen this guy on LinkedIn. You may have read his book. He's a big star, has a great mastermind, great real estate mind, family man. Really look forward to my guest today. Please help me welcome Justin Donald. Justin, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ferd. I'm excited to catch up. And we just recorded a show on my podcast, The Lifestyle Investor, and we're back for round 2 on yours. And I just, I feel like I want everyone to know just how amazing you are as an attorney, as a mobile home park investor. I mean, if the first and best thing I can do is to just endorse you to your own community, I am a paying client who loves your services, and I think you do fantastic work. And I think you know your scope of what you can and can't do. And when you do refer out to someone else, when it's outside your expertise, you know all the people to refer to. So I'm a huge fan.
Well, I appreciate it. You make me blush. Well, big fan of yours as well. I've read your book, so obviously, I'm familiar with your mastermind and what you do on social media as well. So obviously, if somebody's read your book, they know you're an MH guy. But for those that haven't, now's your chance to expose your view of the world on MH. So tell us a little bit how you got into MH, and then I'm just curious, part of your other career journey and how you got to where you're at, because you've obviously been very successful and you got a whole following of people that are trying to replicate what you've been able to put in place in your personal life.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And, really for me, the mobile home park industry has just been massive for our family. I mean, it's done wonders. And I just remember as an entrepreneur, working so many hours, working so hard, and just in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is not sustainable, right? Like as a new founder, it's hard sometimes to figure out how to delegate and how to build systems and do all the things that in time, hopefully we're able to do. And if you don't, your business likely doesn't make it. But I remember putting in hours and working on weekends, working late, and I just remember thinking, gosh, I'm okay putting in this time now. And this is probably good for me to have this discipline and this work ethic. But when I have kids, I can't be working like this. So I either need to figure out how to systematize this, or I need to get into a different industry or business that allows me to be more flexible with my time and kind of be on my schedule. And so I looked at all the different types of real estate. I had friends doing, basically every real estate asset class. I talked to them. I did my own research, and I just found that the most outsized returns with the least amount of work, with the least amount of expertise, was really in the mobile home park space. And so I had a friend that kind of got me into it. It's actually funny. My good buddy, he had a whole bunch of single family homes. And he had learned that this was the way that, you create wealth. His mentor had a bunch of them and had done really well. But he realized that these single family homes were a ton of work. The margins weren't what he thought that they were going to be. And he's like, I'm selling all of them and I'm going to buy a mobile home park. And I remember thinking, man, you are crazy. You're selling these really nice homes and you're going to buy a mobile home park. He's like, yeah, do you want to go to a boot camp with me? And I was like, no, I have no interest in going to a boot camp to learn about an asset class that does not sound appealing whatsoever. And so the funny thing is, I ended up being like a hard money lender for him to help get this park. So I am able to look at some of the numbers and see how they're doing. And I'm like, wait a minute, these are really good. Like, this is a profitable park. You're making a lot of money. And this buddy, Tim, he at one point used to work with me in a previous business. He was one of my top sales guys. And he was eventually like, hey, I'm going to retire. And I'm like, retire? What are you talking about? He's like, well, I'm done. I make enough money from the mobile home park.
Wow.
And
one park. That's great.
One park. And it just blew my mind. So I was like, all right, I got to take this seriously. I got to stop trading time for money. I'm a slave to my business. I'm a slave to, like, I tell people I'm a business owner, but really my business owns me. That was the truth, you know? And maybe that was better than being in corporate America for me, at least. But it still was not what my ideal was. And so I decided, okay, well, maybe I should get in the game. So I bought my first mobile home park that, you know, I was so nervous. I remember I would wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats, like, what am I doing? I'm going to throw away. This one was like $65,000 as a down payment. I'm like, oh man, I mean, this is a lot of money. It's the most money I've ever put down on anything before, right? So, and so eventually I was just like, you know what? Other people have done it. If I follow their playbook, I'm going to get, like, we got to use the logical, rational part of our brain here. I should get 60, 70% of the results that they get if I follow their playbook, and then I can eventually get better, right? So I bought that park, and this is almost to the dollar that this park cash flowed after debt service enough to literally replace my wife's income. So she was a teacher at the time, taught high school business, personal finance, did some extracurriculars with coaching, FBLA, and you know, just some of these different programs. And that park, in one fell swoop, covered her income. She retired to be a stay-at-home mom. We had our daughter. And then I bought another park that park covered our survival income. So 2 parks. First one covered hers. The second one covered just what it costs us to live. So not just to survive, right? So not like eating out and travel and all that, but like the bare minimums, which that in itself was a huge relief, right?
Yeah, that's financial freedom right there.
Totally. You move from having to work to getting to work, right? I made tons of different decisions. And that at that time in my business, and that time, like what I was spending my time on. And I got smarter. I mean, it allowed me to hire people I probably should have hired anyway, build some systems, take some risks, do some things that maybe I was afraid to do when money wasn't solved yet. And then these parks were doing great. We ended up having some extra capital, bought a third park, and that one covered our lifestyle income. And then every park from there was just surplus income. I remember that third park, we ended up selling it. We got too good of an offer, couldn't turn it down. So we sold it at a year and a day. So I remember thinking at a year and a day, I made 500,000. So I put I think it was $126,000. No, I'm sorry. I put $120,000 to buy the park. I made $130,000, or just under $130,000 in cash flow from that park, right? Above and beyond debt service. Like it was incredible. And then I sold it for another $500,000 in a year and a day. And I was like, wait a minute. I did so little work and I just made more in this single transaction than I was making over here in my business, slaving away hours and hours and hours. And it was just the biggest epiphany of like, okay, the time's here. I mean, my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, you're walking away from making twice as much money. And I said, yeah, the goal was never to make more money. The goal was always to buy my time back. And so that was it. You know, we 1031 that park into 2 other parks. Those 2 other parks produced twice the, you know, income. And from that point on, we've been in surplus income. And surplus income is really a fun place because you're at lifestyle and then some. But it's like people work hard to save, you know, 10, 15, 20% of what they make, their earned income. Once you get to surplus income, 100% can go to building wealth and having impact and, you know, philanthropic, but also investment and kind of combining that. And so it's a different place. You can see how wealth compounding can happen at a much faster clip when you're putting 100% of the surplus income into, you know, that bucket.
No, that's great. That's inspiring. I'm curious how did you pull that off, the systems and the people, and which is more important? Are they both necessary? I think that's the challenge a lot of entrepreneurs, and you mentioned it, like you were a slave to your business. I remember I went to Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, and he said, raise your hand if you're a business owner. And like 95% of people do, because you're the type of person that has the flexibility to go to the event, invest in your education. So you went to the event and had enough money to invest. It was like $10,000 for the week.
Right.
So raise your hand. Like 95% of people are like, yeah, I am. There's a couple people that are not, right? He goes, okay, keep your hand up if this is true. You can take the next month off and your income will be the same and your business will be working just as well as if you were there. And like everybody put their hand down and was demoralized. And he's like, you're not a business owner. You're a business operator.
Mm,
Business operators get tired. Business owners get rich. So it's very hard to go from the operator to the owner, in particular, in a way that, gives you the financial and mental freedom. So I'm curious what tips you have to pull that off.
yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like I'm much more gifted on the people side than on the system side. So by necessity, I've been able to create systems, but by innate, gifting or based on repetition, I've done a lot of work in direct sales and consulting, and I've just done so much with people over the years that I have. Um, I feel like a good grasp on, number one, where I'm strong and clearly what I'm good at, but even more clearly what I'm not good at. And then number two, I'm good at finding the people that are good at the things that I'm not good at. And I'm also good at really finding people that can be long term. So instead of finding someone that's a temporary hire, most of the time people think that all the people they hire are permanent hires, but there's definite, there's some body language, there's some cues, there's some things you can see where you can kind of figure that out. And even personality assessments and profiles and that sort of thing to make sure that the people that you are hiring are going to be in the right seat, on that bus. So that has been a strength of mine. And so because of that, we've had, people that have been working with us for 10, 15, 20 years, in some cases, over 20 years.
Wow. No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I've researched this to some degree and one of the biggest expenses of an organization is turnover.
Oh yeah.
And we've had it happen over the years. We're like, man, this person's great. We think they love us. We think we love them. And then they just say, I'm out. We're like, what happened? And like one of their needs was not being met. Either they got a $2,000 raise that I didn't realize that was how close we were, or they didn't want to work in this, they wanted a different office chair, or they didn't want to work with this other coworker, or they, got burned out, or they had a side hustle they wanted to do. We could have given them opportunity. We could have helped them on their side hustle, things like
Right.
that. So just, trying to get to know your people better is good. So just your success in that is natural talent you have, or anything that if I don't have that natural talent, what would you advise me to do to try to replicate some of your results?
Well, there's definitely a big component that's learned. So I think that I probably have some natural gifting because I enjoy people. I mean, I really enjoy just getting together and talking with people. So it's not a lot of work for me. Whereas for some people, it is a lot of work, right? They're probably not as people oriented. Not that they can't do it, but it takes a lot more energy for them to do it, right? So I think from that gifting, like people generally give me energy outside of maybe a few personalities. um but I think on the skill side of it, it's really learning how to work with all the different types of people, all the different personalities, the people that you have in different seats. Like an admin person is going to be way different than an operator, is going to be way different than a financial, a head of finance or whatever. And so understanding what that looks like, having regular reviews, having spending time outside the office, building a relationship with them, even gifts to them that are unexpected and include their spouse. And there's just so many things, but trying to open the lines of communication. You ever need anything, make sure that you come to me, and trying to avoid the situation where people leave and after the fact, you're like, oh, that was it. I could have solved for that if I had known. It's like, how do we open up the communication channel so that we know it first and, can address it? And a lot of that's just really, getting to know them on a personal level, and it's time spent. More importantly, not in the office, obviously training and all that's important, but it's time out of the office that I think makes the biggest difference, where people see that you care.
No, it's great tips. Good. Yeah. I mean, You always hear it, people are, it's like you're supposed to say that people are your family or people are your team, but if they don't really believe it or they don't feel it, then they're like, no, this is just a transaction time for money. And, you know, I, I'm like, we can't pay you the most money, and if it's just about money, you're gonna move as soon as you get another penny an hour. We want to make it a better experience. We want it to be a better, team atmosphere. And for people to really know it, I think is helpful. So yeah, sometimes that backfires where someone's like, hey, here's what I need. I need you to make me a personal loan to go buy a car. It's like, no, that's not what I wanted. But they've done before and doesn't always work out well. But just creating a sense of team. Yeah, that's great for building the right bench to then have those people. Yeah, I've got some people here that kind of like you. I'm not as oriented towards the systems. So some of these other guys are. They're like system, system, system. I'm like, man, we can't do without you. So that's definitely been helpful.
Yeah, at one point I thought I was actually decent at systems until I met a few people that are really good at them, and I was like, yeah, I don't even have. I'm barely JV here.
Yeah, that's a great feeling to have. I've had that happen before on like, I'm like, I'm pretty good at Microsoft Excel. And then I see some other people like, whoa, I thought I was good at Excel. I know the
Right.
basics, and it's stuff like that. It's like, good for you. I'm not very tech savvy. I'm fairly organized, but I don't know how to use all the tech tools the way some of these younger folks seem to do. But um, well, tell me about your MH criteria. So, I mean, you got in the space. You've got a unique situation where you're an author, you're a influencer, you've got a mastermind group, you got other business interests. So, how does that factor into the type of manufactured housing community you want to buy? Are you buying stuff on market, off market? You buying stabilized value, or you buy a combination? Because they seem to I mean, a lot of people pick one strategy or the other, but I know you enough to know you got all these other irons in the fire. So how are you able to pull all that off?
Yeah, I think at first I pulled it off in a very sloppy fashion, and then I've just figured out over time, how to be a little bit more effective. And at the end of the day, now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, well, let's just say that I don't optimize the business, but I do optimize the family. Is that a trade-off I'm willing to make? And for me, it is. And the reality is, over time, I've just learned to get better with less time, and it forces me to focus on the things that matter most instead of trying to do too much. So early on in my career, I did too much. I was spread too thin, and I just learned if I can hire some key people, maybe they're not better than me at first, but they likely will get better than me. And if I have 5 of them, then they're infinitely better than me collectively, right?
Right.
And so, that I had that aha, luckily, pretty early on in my career. But I've also made the mistake of buying parks that were such a turnaround that, like I bought a park that was like 30% occupied, and I will never do that again. It's just a heavy lift. It's really hard. Now we do have that park almost at full occupancy, and it took a long time. But it's that's not what I want to sign up for today. I would much rather buy properties that cash flow day one. And technically, that one did. I got such a good price on it, and it was a seller finance, so it was low down payment. I only had to put 15% down. So technically, that one did cash flow barely when I bought it. And then when we did a rent increase, made some improvements, it cash flowed more, and then we just kind of added 1 or 2 homes a year. But I much prefer having like a great cash flow property that builds in a nice margin of safety, a good cushion should things go wrong or should we lose some tenants. Um, so yeah, I probably want it 60, 70, 80% occupied when I buy it. And then try to, squeeze the rest of the juice, out of the fruit from there. And really, I feel like I've got a great team that over the years has really gotten better on the operational side. Early on, I did a lot of that work myself. But I've got a woman that I work with who, I mean, she's worked with me in several of my businesses and has just done a phenomenal job. And, we've now worked together for over 20 years.
Wow.
And she heads up our entire real estate portfolio. So all the mobile home parks, all the single family homes, we don't try to be in single family homes, but somehow over the time, we'll buy some parks that have those homes attached. And I don't know, I think we have like 20 or more single family homes, maybe 30.
Nice. No, that's good. So I hear you that, yeah, not the heaviest value add at this point, but still, you still want something that's got some meat on the bone, as opposed to if you bought a deal that's 99% occupied, might be easier, but you're not going to get the yield. So you're still conscious of, yield, because most likely that 99% occupied is there's not much juice left in it, and or it's going to be highly competitive at the bid,
That's right.
and it's going to go to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and to answer one of your other questions, most of our deals have been off market. I've bought one deal from a broker that went through an actual process, and all of our other, I think, 19 deals have all been off market. And so that, to me, I mean, I talk about this in my book, finding invisible deals. And one way to find an invisible deal, I mean, one is certainly finding future trends. Mobile home parks early, like when we got in, we found a trend before it was popular, and now it's really popular. But it's also finding the off-market deals so they don't get bid up, right? So for the right price, if I got a fully occupied park, I would take it for the right price. But you're likely not going to get the right price for a fully occupied park, So I generally am going to settle in the 60 to 80% range. I've got some lenders that have been really good to me, so they'll lend even on 60% occupancy, 70% occupancy. Some banks don't like that.
Right.
Just like, Fannie and Freddie want to see 80% occupancy. A lot of banks do too. But I even we've seen them in all shapes and sizes, but yeah, I want less of a lift today.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I've done the heavy lift, and we've had some that are still in got years ahead of them. To me, if you're going to do the really heavy lift, you've got to have either a longer duration to implement the business plan, or have a really good sense of the probability of implementing the business plan. And typically, that means it's a strong market, and or it's a nice park. And part of what a nice park is to me is if it's got big flat lots, so you could put in larger homes. So I have one park here in Kansas City that was it was like 28% occupied when I bought it, but they were big flat lots in a decent town with, decent infrastructure and high demand, being in a, Kansas City suburb. So we were able to fill it up, no problem. I've got some other parks where it's like the demand might be there, but not the right kind of demand. It's like people are like, oh, I love it, I want it. I got $500. Can you work with me on the deposit? Like, it's $950 a month rent plus $950 deposit. Or like, I got $500. I get paid on Friday. I can get you another 300 on Friday. Like, no. So the demand is there, but the people in that market don't have the credit. So by virtue of that, I need many multiples of demand in order to sift through the people that can actually handle the payments and get approved. So that's been a challenge on some heavy lifts, is you really need a lot of numbers in order to make that work.
Yeah, and we've put new homes in a market that maybe can't support it. And technically, we didn't put them in. We bought a park that had put 10 new homes in, and I basically bought them pretty much after they had moved them in, right? But it was next door to my biggest park. So I wanted the property. But it really looks like in that instance, that market may not support these new homes, or the people that have been marketing these are not doing a good job of it. So, we're in the process of figuring that out right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, think that's a good point. Is a lot of markets, especially rural or tertiary markets, they just can't support the new home price, and that's okay. It just means you can't infill as easily, because if I need 12 homes tomorrow, I buy new homes. It's just okay. Order new homes. Got to go find 12 used homes. Bigger process. I got to coordinate more of the transport and the install.
Yeah.
But then if my basis is 65,000 over here and 30 over here, I might need to be at the 30. I've got one park in particular that we actually pulled a home out. We could put a home in there. We thought we could sell this nicer price home. Couldn't do it. We're like, we're going to lose $10,000 in this home. Like, let's just move it down the street, spend not down the street, 40 miles away, spend $5,000 and sell it for a premium of 5,000. We make a delta of another 10 grand and just try again over here. So you really had to get smart on which home goes in which park, and demand is a huge factor in that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's such a great space. The more you get to know it, the more opportunities you'll find. It's not as scary as you might think, and it's just really the easiest of all the real estate asset classes by a large margin.
Yeah, no, in your portfolio, I'm familiar with your portfolio locations. So many of your parks are in one tight nucleus. You've got a couple other outliers. How has that strategy worked, and or are you going to deviate and expand in different areas, or are you going to try to just double down in the areas that you're already located in?
Yeah, for us, I think we're just going to continue to expand in the areas that we're in. So we've got two parks that are outlier parks that are further away from everything else. And so we're actually thinking very seriously about, do we just sell these two parks, take our profits, roll them into infill on these other parks, and then just double down on these, these few markets that we really like. So the majority, so we've got, the two outlier parks, and then we've got four parks in one city, and then we've got 12 that are all, within 30 minutes of each other, over, two metros that, are becoming more like one metro, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I really like it. The two major cities are probably 90 minutes apart, and either of those cities I'm pretty happy with, since we've got a good, contingent in each. And that state is actually very favorable in terms of tenant laws and, not being difficult to work with. Like we're in the state of Illinois with one of these parks. That is such a difficult state on so many levels. And that's one of the ones that we think we're just going to sell. Whereas, you get into some of these other Midwest markets, they're just so easy to work with. The governments are easy to work with, these townships. I mean, it's just so business friendly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely state by state, there's definitely differences to business friendly, but even city by city too. Because I own several parks in Illinois, and one in particular, the city's paying the butt. But in another one, the cities are like, do whatever you want. We don't care. Like really easy. Um, so it kind of depends, and depends on what type of park is what you need at a state level. But yeah, so I mean, I know you're in a pretty tight nucleus. So I mean, that's interesting because that's kind of how I am. We're in several states, but all relatively close by. Right now we sold our park in Kansas. We got Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska. But I have a lot of clients that'll live in California, invest in New York, Florida, and Texas, and they're doing well. And I'm just like, I
Wow.
don't know how you do it. And again, it's systems and people. One group in particular, everybody in the company, and they're big operator. Everybody's remote, so like it's just became their culture. Like you have hubs, and everybody watches from hub, and then I think they just budget more airplane rides. Like, look, I'm gonna fly from California to Texas to look at these parks once a quarter, whereas I don't have to do that. I drive to my parks, because they're all relatively close. But different strategy, but it can definitely work.
For sure. And Texas has really friendly zoning laws too. They're not as hard to work with as a lot of these other states. You know, we've got a suburb. You're familiar with this, city inside of a major metro. Part of me is like, do I mention it just uh, to do it? Well, I'll just say it. Arnold, Missouri is literally like the worst city I've ever worked with. I have parks, and I've had parks in so many different cities. I have never in my entire life met a more difficult to work with, discriminating at the highest level government, or township. I mean, it is really bad. And so we, had to hire an attorney, and we have a state and federal lawsuit against this city for all the wrongs that they've done, against our residents, against us as business owners. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, and I'm familiar with that one, so I'll add the asterisk of, um, in my opinion, that's in your opinion. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but um, just some factual stuff as well to look at. You wouldn't think, Arnold, Missouri is in Missouri, red state. Illinois is half an hour away, blue state. The cities in Illinois tend to be more friendly. So what you look at is, whether it's discrimination or just preference of they want to be progressive and on the up and up as far as real estate development. A lot of these cities don't want the little trailer park, so they regulate it away. I'm of the opinion that a regulation is a over regulation, especially particularly your grandfathered rights, are a taking by regulation, and takings should receive compensation. And not that you want them to take the property, you want them to leave you alone, run the property. But some of these cities are so restrictive that this is important to review your zoning, including before closing. It's not bulletproof to get a zoning letter from the city, but it really helps if you get a zoning letter that says you can put a home in of any size, of any age, of any lot with no permits or no upgrade fees or no tap fees or whatever the rules are, because some of these cities take the position that if you move a home out and it's a 1960 trailer that's 8x40, you can only put in an 8x40 manufactured home or mobile home, which is not a modern size. So that case alone just proves that like all politics is local, all zoning is local, and
That's right.
sometimes it even comes down to the personnel. I have one park in particular. When personnel changed, the interpretation of the city code changed, and you know, that could make or break a deal, and not just a deal, but the impact of the lives of the residents that, in your example, then, tenant-owned home, the guy can't even get a permit to fix his roof
Oh, it's crazy.
because the city's fighting you on infill. Like, that guy, not that I want him to sue you, but at some point he's gonna say, "Well, Justin, you're not helping me out." And you're like, "You want to help out. You want him to get a new roof. You want him to renovate the home. You'd like to give him the home next door for free to do it again." Right.
Yep.
So, um,
100%.
yeah, it's definitely one of the challenges in this industry, and people don't talk about it a ton. I mean, people talk about rent control. People talk about some of these tenant rights activist groups, the rights of first refusal for tenants. People talk about a number of other challenges, regulatory, but I think one of the biggest ones is just these cities trying to push people out of business. So they want you to build a skyrise hotel or skyrise apartments, or just go away.
Yep.
They just don't want you there anymore. Because obviously a lot of these parks, they're not in locations that are going to support the skyrise hotel. So the options are go away or continue to run the mobile home park. And the cities often choose go away.
Yeah, it's a shame because what they should be doing is encouraging you to make it better, make it nicer. So it's always really weird to me when a city doesn't want you to improve the property. You know that they're out to eliminate mobile home parks if they are blocking you from fixing up homes to make them look nicer, from bringing in new homes, making it nicer, and even when you bring in new homes at a higher price point, you're raising the tenant base to be able to pay more even on taxes, which is good for the city. So there's just so many ways to to skin it. And if a city is against that, that they just want to eliminate these parks, which we know that that's what's happening in Arnold. I mean, we have facts surrounding that.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that's frustrating to cities is not only are you wanting to improve the park by bringing in new homes and better homes and provide more affordable housing by giving more families opportunity, but what you're doing indirectly is you're improving the wealth of the existing residents. One of my guests came on here and he had some studies on this where if you own a 1990 Champion at a really crappy park, it's worth X. But if the park improves the infrastructure, the park improves the operation and the rules and the enforcement, cleans it up, adds amenities, and the park brings in more homes and starts selling newer, better homes, your 1990 Champion actually will sell for more.
That's right.
Because we always talk about real estate, location, location, location. The average individual cannot change the location or the value of the location, but you can take a working class neighborhood or a poor neighborhood and turn it into a middle class neighborhood in a sense. I'm talking like residential terms, but you can improve the whole neighborhood such that everybody else is like, wow, my house is up in value. Thanks, Justin. Now,
Right.
sometimes they'll say, why'd you increase the rent $30? But the reality is you're making their home more valuable. And obviously they may not sell it tomorrow. So I get that, but you're making their quality of life more valuable. And some of these cities love it and support it. I got one town where the city's like, whatever you need, man. You want us to do extra police patrols? We'll do it. You want us to, I don't know, waive permits or, put it in writing that you can do whatever, go for it. Like, we want you to improve the town. Other cities are like, I've had one mayor in particular drove me around and he showed me, I was trying to buy this park and I asked him, I knew him because I did some commercial work there. And so I said, I want to buy this park. He said, don't do it. We don't want it. We want it to go away. We want you to bulldoze it, build apartments. That's how I got the lead. The city called me and they said, they knew it, commercial real estate, said, you want to put apartments in or senior housing? And I said, no, I want to keep it as a mobile home park. He took me in his SUV, drove me to the other parks, one of which he called Death Valley. And he goes, we want all these to go away. We have too many of them per capita. We're not going to let you buy this other one. Over
Wow.
time, I bought it because I told him, I said, look, you got a California guy that's not watching it, that's running in the ground. It's worth more as a mobile home park than it is as dirt. So he's going to sell it and somebody's going to run it as a mobile home park. You can either have another guy like that that's not watching it, or you can have me. I've been city attorney in this town. It's like I literally was, good with the city council, good with the mayor, owned commercial real estate there. Like, you get me, or you're going to get somebody that you don't know. The pipe dream of new senior housing is not going to happen. The
Yeah.
pipe dream of new skyrise houses is not going to happen, at least not at this location. So he gave me permission. And then I turned the park around, just was one of my better success stories. And I brought him back in, brought the manager back in, and I thought I was going to get like a key to the city. And they said, oh, you brought in more of these trailers. I was just like, these are brand new. These are nice. I went inside, showed them around, and they're like, this isn't even sheetrock. It's like the batten strip walls. I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
how mobile homes are. A lot of them. And he's just like, yeah, these aren't that good. I thought you were making this place better. I'm like, I spent $250,000 in like 90 days. And he's just like, yeah, it's still a trailer park. So I'm like, even when you do everything you can, sometimes they love you and sometimes they don't. So it's not a fair world out there.
No kidding. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I'm just blown away that I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with discrimination issues in St. Louis. This is a big suburb in St. Louis. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. It's crazy for sure. Well, Justin, this is great. Before we jump, any other tips or tricks you want to share? And then, if not, where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, take the time to do the reps and take the time to get around other people that are doing the things that you want to do. I think for me, one of the biggest keys to my success is that I read a lot of books. So you talked on my show about how you read all these Robert Kiyosaki books, which I did too. And how at that point in time, podcasts weren't really a thing, but I listen to them all the time now, and I learn a ton from them. And then I've just been very strategic about spending time joining groups, joining masterminds, joining communities, joining investor groups where people are playing the game of business and life and wealth creation at a much higher level than me. So that way I can learn what they're doing. I can have people, I think it's important in life that we always have people that are our mentors that we can learn from, but then people that we can mentor so we can sharpen our skills by teaching other people and helping them, grow and learn. And so, for me, I've just spent a lot of time trying to get in the right rooms, paying people that are experts to be, coaches and mentors. So that to me is it. Get around the people doing the things that you want to do, and the people that you aspire to be.
No, that's great advice. I'm reminded of a friend of mine who always says, mimicry is the best form of flattery, and success leaves clues. And he's like, if I want to lose 20 pounds, I don't want to go ask somebody who's put on 100. And I also don't want to ask somebody who's always been skinny, because
That's right.
they maybe they're skinny because of their behavior, but maybe they're just naturally skinny. I want to find somebody who used to be my size, who's now 20 pounds skinnier. And if
Yep.
I want to be around somebody that's, worth $5 million, I don't want to be around the guy that inherited 10 and lost 5. I want to be around the guy that started in a similar situation, maybe a similar upbringing or similar education, or found a path to get there. So I think that's great. And the masterminds, I know you got a great mastermind, and there's lots of good research out there. I'm curious, what book, if you had one or two books that you would, I know you read a ton, so it's hard to limit, but one or two books that you'd really recommend. Curious what they'd be.
Well, the book that still to this day had the biggest impact on me, like it was just a profound impact, was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. That book literally changed the game for me. And I pivoted from I thought I was a business owner when really I was a sole proprietor, right? I thought I had this business, but really I was an operator that the business owned me. And so it was very eye-opening. And I was like, oh, I either need to like pivot to like being a real business owner that has a business that can operate without me for,
Right.
long stretches of time, a year at a time, at least a few months. Or I need to pivot into this investor quadrant. And so I just figured that made the most sense to me at that point in time. So um, that was just a magical book for me. And then I'd say the Almanac of Naval Ravikant has been like a modern day book of wisdom for me. I think the way he thinks about the world is incredible. And I've made some pretty big moves based on just, gleaning some of his wisdom and, taking into account the things he says, but putting action behind them.
Great. I'm gonna. I own that book. I'm moving up my list now. I'm one of those guys. Every time I hear about a book, I buy it. And
I am
I've
too.
read hundreds, but I got 100 more I haven't got to yet. And that I own that one. I just haven't got. It hasn't made up the list, so I'll have to move it up.
Yep, that's the same. So the ones for me, I've got, all these here. I've read all these ones behind me. My bookshelf that I, feature all these books. Tony Robbins got some great books. His newest one's really good, which is, all on alternative investments. And we talked on my podcast a little bit about how the wealthiest people in the world, check out all the data on the family offices, the UBS report of their family office study has 59% of asset allocation of wealthy people, the wealthiest people in the US being in alternative investments. So I know that's the right place, but so these are the ones I've read. You should see my bookshelves with all the ones I haven't read. Because again, like you, I just buy them. I know that there's no better place I can be investing money into than myself. And so, through books, through conferences, through events, through masterminds, through people, right? Through mentorship. And I'm going to do it at the best of my ability. So yeah, highly recommend those. And then the other thing, you had mentioned this with your friend's comments, but there's so many people that are quote unquote experts on social media, but few of them have actually done the thing that they're teaching. And so I feel like we live in this day and age where everyone is a life coach, everyone's an expert, but if you do your homework, you're going to figure out most of the people with these big audiences, like now all of a sudden you're an expert because you have a big audience, not because you've done the thing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And so I see a lot of people getting hurt, losing money, not doing well because they're investing with or learning from people that are not experts of their craft. They're experts at marketing. They're experts at growing an audience. That doesn't mean you're an expert at the thing that you're teaching. And a lot of these guys are making more money on the education product than they do on the actual investments.
You're poking one of my buttons because I happen to know one guy in particular. I can't say who because he's a client who's preaching his expertise, and I happen to know he's lost his properties because he's not a good investor or operator, but he's great at sales.
That's right.
Tall, dark, and
That's right.
handsome with smooth silver tongue, and it works. So yeah, it really frustrates me. But again, not my job, or not, in this case, it's not my opportunity to throw shade at him. But it's frustrating. But Justin, this is great. Appreciate your insights as always. Where can people find you? I know you're kind of everywhere, but how do you want people to find you if they want to reach out after this?
Yeah, best place is lifestyleinvestor.com. We've got everything there. I mean, our goal is to appeal to anyone that wants to take the next step to, financial freedom. So we've got tons of free content from, podcasts to, you can even, buy the book for free, just pay the shipping. You can get on Amazon if you want. The new and updated expanded edition of the book is actually about to drop. So what a lot of people don't know is the book I had no expectations. I didn't know how well I was going to do. I just was like, maybe a handful of my friends will buy it. Maybe I get 100 or 200 people to buy it.
Yeah.
But this thing went viral on social media, ends up becoming a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller and USA Today bestseller. And as of last year, it's the top 1% of all books ever sold. But what I'm proudest about is that all the proceeds go to fight human trafficking. So the book is actually just we donated hundreds of thousands of dollars on behalf of this book now. And I think this next edition is going to, give the original one a run for its money. So anyway, we've got all that. We've got courses, we've got master classes. Our flagship product is the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind. It's waitlist right now, but application only, and it's hard to get into, but for the right person, for the right fit, it could be amazing. So yeah, check out that. And for anyone that wants to figure out next steps for your audience, I'm happy to do this. We have a consultation call that we do that's generally $500, but for your audience, we'll do it for free. So if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, someone on our team will actually meet with you, talk to you about exactly where you are in life, where you want to go, and maybe what the next best steps are.
Hey man, that's great. Very generous of you, and also just really cool to see what you're doing fighting trafficking. That's awesome. And I can't wait to read the next book. I read the first one and I was like, this is really good. He's not just a social influencer. Like his stuff is good. So I was, and I read a lot of books. So I read a lot of bad books, but yours was really solid. So appreciate everything.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, for me, when I got started, I had no audience. So that's why I wasn't sure if people were actually going to buy it. I didn't have an email list. I didn't have a social media profile. So, I'm still shocked today that this many people have bought it.
Congratulations. Look forward to seeing your future success.
Thanks, Ferd. It's always great to catch up.
Likewise. Thanks, Justin.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.